Should there be more nuclear power in Maine's energy future? That's a question now being asked in Augusta.
Were we lied to about nuclear energy in Maine? I'm Drew Hoagland, and this is the Maine Perspective, where I offer you unbiased information about the state of Maine and things that pertain to the state of Maine. Unbiased as unbiased information insofar as any one journalist can have. If you look at news anchors, they're going to have bias, but it will show through the network that they're promoted through. Here on the Maine Perspective, I try to take everything into account from an average Mainer, whether you're rural or coastal. Are these issues that are going to rile you up, whether you're Republican or Democrat, independent? Here on the Maine Perspective, that's not the point. The point is to try and get to the bottom of a situation and see what is best for the entirety of the state of Maine. And nuclear energy is today's hot topic. It's something that I've looked into in the past, just kind of on a whim, because I've heard that nuclear energy is not as bad as we thought, but I never actually spent any time researching it. Before I get into it, let's go ahead and check in with what actually nuclear energy means.
Legislators discuss a bill at the State House that could be the start of bringing nuclear power back to Maine. Maine has not had a nuclear power plant since Maine Yankee in Wiscasset that closed in 1996. Environmentalist groups petitioned to shut down the nuclear plant, but it wasn't until an investigation exposed costly safety problems that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission decided to shut the plant down. LD 689 is a bill to study the construction of a nuclear power plant in Maine, sponsored by Republican Representative Mark Walker and co-sponsored by several legislators, including Republican Eric Brakey. Brakey says nuclear power has come a long way since Maine Yankee.
Nuclear energy today is safer, cleaner, cheaper than ever before. It doesn't escape into the environment and create the kind of environmental concerns that people have had before.
Brakey says Maine needs to explore other energy sources to lessen our dependency on fossil fuels.
We can fantasize about a world where we can just rely on wind and solar, but that's not really realistic with kind of the limitations on that technology.
Democratic House Representative Jerry Runte, who opposes the bill, says there is no market for a nuclear power plant in the United States.
There are no manufacturers. They're all out of business. They have no market. They have no buyers. The plants that you see being built today are being built by Russia and China. I'm skeptical, but there could be 20 or 30 years from now smaller versions of some of the things that people are working on now, these technologies, but I do not see them as commercially available and viable, economic, in the near term.
Legislators will continue to discuss the bill in hearings and in work sessions, and Brakey says he hopes that the committee decides to move forward on it. Reporting in Augusta, I'm Talia Clark.
What are your thoughts here? Representative Runte says that there's no market for nuclear energy. Maybe 20 to 30 years from now, we can have small versions of what we're proposing. 20 to 30 years. Yet we're pushing green energy, solar, wind, all these other things that are relatively new, mind you. But nuclear, which has proven to be resourceful and effective, that's going to take 20 to 30 years. I just feel like we have our priorities backwards here. But those are just my initial thoughts. Before I get into any more, let's go ahead and see the cons of nuclear energy.
3 reasons why we should stop using nuclear energy. 1. Nuclear weapons proliferation. Nuclear technology made a violent entrance onto the world stage. Just 1 year after the world's first ever nuclear test explosion in 1944, 2 large cities were destroyed by just 2 single bombs. After that, reactor technology slowly evolved as a means of generating electricity, but it's always been intimately connected with nuclear weapons technology. It's nearly impossible to develop nuclear weapons without access to reactor technology. In fact, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty serves the purpose of spreading nuclear reactor technology without spreading nuclear weapons with limited success. In 40 years, 5 countries have developed their own weapons with the help of reactor technology. The fact of the matter is that it can be very hard to distinguish a covert nuclear weapons program from the peaceful use of nuclear energy. In the 1970s, the big nuclear powers were happily selling peaceful technology to smaller countries, which then developed weapons of their own. The road to deadly nuclear weapons is always paved with peaceful reactors. 2. Nuclear waste and pollution. Spent nuclear fuel is not only radioactive, but also contains extremely poisonous chemical elements like plutonium. It loses its harmfulness only slowly over several tens of thousands of years. And there is also a process called reprocessing, which means the extraction of plutonium from spent nuclear fuel. It can be used for 2 purposes: to build nuclear weapons or to use it as new fuel. But hardly any of it is used as fuel because we don't have the right kind of reactors for that. A milligram will kill you, a few kilograms make an atomic bomb, and even an inconspicuous country like Germany literally has tons of the stuff just lying around because reprocessing sounded like a good idea decades ago. And where will all the waste go? After dumping it into the ocean was forbidden, we've tried to bury it, but we can't find a place where it will definitely stay secure for tens of thousands of years. Over 30 countries operate nearly 400 reactors, managing several hundred thousands of tons of nuclear waste, and only one is currently serious about opening a permanent civilian waste storage: tiny Finland. 3. Accidents and disasters. Over 60 years of nuclear power usage, there have been 7 major accidents in reactors or facilities dealing with nuclear waste. 3 of those were mostly contained, but 4 of them released significant amounts of radioactivity into the environment. In 1957, 1987 and 2011, large areas of land in Russia, Ukraine and Japan were rendered unfit for human habitation for decades to come. The number of deaths is highly disputed, but probably lies in the thousands. These disasters happened with nuclear reactors of very different types in very different countries and several decades apart. Looking at the numbers, we may as well ask ourselves, are 10% of the world's energy supply worth a devastating disaster every 30 years? Would 30% be worth another Fukushima or Chernobyl somewhere on Earth every 10 years? What area would have to be contaminated so we say no more? Where is the line? So, should we use nuclear energy? The risks may outweigh the benefits, and maybe we should stop looking into this direction and drop this technology for good. If you want
In a statement, Paul says small modular reactors could provide a steady carbon-free power source with a very small land footprint and a scalable nature that make them well suited for Maine's energy needs. Reception has been mixed. Paul's Democratic colleague, State Representative Sophie Warren, sees the merits of CO2-free nuclear power in battling climate change.
Greenhouse gases are the crisis of our time, and we've got to stay laser focused on that consideration here.
But Warren is doubtful reactors in Maine would be practical, especially as state law requires a voter referendum before bringing nuclear power back to the state.
I have no present interest to bring a small nuclear reactor to the state of Maine. It doesn't make sense.
And in a region that saw mass protests over the construction of a large nuclear power plant in New Hampshire in the 1970s, the same activists from that fight, among them Kathy Wolf, are now wary of a new attempt at a power source that leaves behind radioactive waste.
We haven't resolved any of the issues that go along with producing electricity through nuclear power. There's no permanent disposal.
For now, nuclear in Maine remains a thought on paper. Donovan Lynch, News Center, Maine.
Respectfully, Representative Warren, do you know what the hell you're talking about? You're saying that you have no interest of small-scale nuclear energy coming back to the state of Maine. It's not on your agenda, but you're a representative. You've been elected to do what the people want. So Personally, I don't care what you personally think. If the constituents that you represent are the ones that are pushing you towards it, you best be doing it. Period. Like, there is no, what are you thinking? Have you done any research? And I try to stay unbiased, but I am a little peeved at that because Representative Warren clearly does not know what's going on or how nuclear energy could affect the state of Maine positively. She's looking at it from a microcosm of misinformation, disinformation, and years of propaganda. That's not how politics work. So respectfully, Representative Warren, go back and do your research, because I have been. You're up here speaking on a state level, maybe national level, and you don't know what you're talking about. Come on now. I mean, here I am saying I'm going to remain unbiased, but that peeved me off to no end. Anyway, before I get into more of my opinions, because this is my channel, so I'm allowed to offer up my own opinions and my own bias. I try to remain unbiased, and I allow you to know that. However, when I am biased, I also allow you to know that. So this is my channel. If you don't like it, click off. But until then, let's go ahead and hear from the other side and see some of the pros of nuclear energy.
Whenever I talk to people about the benefits of nuclear power, how dependable, how efficient, how clean it is, I'm always challenged with this. Yeah, but what about the waste? Their question is hardly surprising. The New York Times claims that the U.S. is awash in radioactive waste. The Los Angeles Times writes that figuring out where and how to safely store radioactive waste is one of the biggest obstacles to nuclear power. And Wired magazine warns that even our next generation reactors may still have a big nuclear waste problem. And so it goes. Even though the greenest of greens will admit that nuclear power is a clean source of abundant, reliable energy, many stop short of supporting it. The nuclear waste problem ends discussion before it begins. After all, why develop this great source of energy if it's going to poison our air and water with deadly radioactivity? There's only one problem with this well-worn disaster scenario. It's not true. The nuclear waste problem is a myth. How so? Let's start with what nuclear waste actually is, or to be more precise, what it isn't. It's not a green goo oozing out of rusted barrels like you see on The Simpsons. That's literally a cartoon. The real radioactive stuff, usually uranium-235, comes in hard ceramic pellets. A single pellet contains more energy than a ton of coal or 3 barrels of oil. 10 pellets can power a typical American home for a year. These pellets are stacked into narrow, very strong tubes made from zirconium, a natural element much stronger than steel. These are the fuel rods. There's nothing gooey or green about this picture. Then, these fuel rods are loaded into a reinforced chamber full of water. This is the reactor. After the reactor is done using the fuel, there is very little material, now called spent fuel, to dispose of. If all the electricity you ever used over your whole lifetime came from nuclear power, the spent fuel would only fill a soda can. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, if you took all the spent fuel generated by all American nuclear power plants for the last 6 decades, and then you piled it on a single football field, it would form a stack just 30 feet high. That's it. America's entire stockpile of spent nuclear fuel would fit on a single football field, and it wouldn't even reach the top of the goalposts. But nuclear waste is uniquely dangerous, activists say. It remains radioactive for thousands of years. Yes, spent nuclear fuel is hazardous if you get too close to it or ingest it. But you can say the same thing about ammonia, mercury, chlorine, and other deadly chemicals we use every day in industry, and even in our homes. Industries follow strict rules to keep the public and the environment safe from those toxins. Nuclear plants follow much stricter rules when it comes to storing their radioactive materials. Fortunately, it's not that difficult to keep spent nuclear fuel safe and secure. After about 5 years in the reactor, the fuel rods are removed and submerged in a water tank where their heat and radioactivity gradually subside for several more years. Finally, the rods are placed in an airtight stainless steel vault that's welded shut and wrapped in a thick layer of reinforced concrete. These are called dry cask storage units. These casks are stored under armed guard at dozens of nuclear facilities around the country. They don't take up a lot of space, and they've never been involved in a serious accident. Still, not everyone is happy with this solution. Some experts think we need to collect all that spent fuel and put it in an underground storage facility where it can be locked away basically forever. In 2002, Congress approved building a deep geological repository under Yucca Mountain in Nevada. But the Obama administration killed that plan. No number of safety studies could convince them it was safe. Maybe they didn't want to be convinced. Today, some anti-nuclear activists say we shouldn't build any more nuclear plants until some sort of underground repository is completed. They're wrong. First, today's storage casks are perfectly safe. They are well guarded, too heavy to steal, and too tough for bad guys to break into. Second, the spent fuel inside those casks still contains a lot of usable energy. France, Japan, and other countries reprocess their spent fuel and use it again. We should do the same. So let's stop thinking of our dry cask storage sites as dangerous nuclear waste dumps. They're safe just as they are, and someday they could be a convenient source of affordable, climate-friendly fuel. America needs the abundant clean energy that nuclear power provides. We shouldn't let groundless fears hold us back. Let the nuclear power renaissance begin. I'm James Meigs, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University.
What are we going to do about the waste? Where are we going to put all that waste? It's silly.
Shove it in a hole.
Yeah, basically. And that's exactly what we're planning to do. Holes that are deep enough and in beds of material that will hold them long enough for everything to decay back to the original ore. It's not a big problem except politically because nobody wants it in their backyard.
At this point, I think it's fairly clear where I land with nuclear energy and nuclear energy plants. I'm all about it. Is it dangerous? Does it offer up obstacles? Do we need to be cautious? Of course. But as the video points out, ammonium, chlorine, all those things offer up potentially deadly chemicals that we use in manufacturing and household items every single day. So we're going to need to come up with a better argument against nuclear energy and nuclear energy waste if we want to continue saying that it's not necessary. Because in my opinion, it's totally necessary. But what are your thoughts? Are you for or against nuclear energy? Is there something I didn't cover in this video that you think would be relevant to the discussion? Is there something more I should research? Go ahead, leave those in comments down below. But before I end this video, I want to leave you with this video. Let's just get into it.
For millennia, the power to conjure gold from base metal was the stuff of legend, tantalizing alchemists and scientists alike. But now, in a revelation that rewrites the rules of possibility, an American nuclear fusion startup claims to have cracked this ancient code. Our next report telling you more.
For centuries, the quest for the Midas touch, the dream of transforming lead into lustrous gold, remained confined to the dusty scrolls of folklore and the fervent imagination of mystics. From jewelry to electronics, from the SIM card in your phone to space travel, and as the safest investment option, gold shines bright. The alchemist's dream has finally breached the laboratory, in a move that would have stunned Newton and confounded the pharaohs. A San Francisco-based company, Marathon Fusion, claims it can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. By harnessing the searing forces at the heart of a nuclear fusion reactor, the startup proposes it can transmute mercury or, potentially, other metals into gold, using high-energy neutrons as their philosopher's stone. Marathon's plans extend beyond gold. The experiment has revolutionary potential. An endless supply of rare earths, engineered from abundant elements, and yes, the tantalizing prospect of manufacturing gold from cheaper, more common metals. While the scientific claim itself is monumental, the path to practical application is fraught with formidable obstacles. The company's breakthrough has yet to be peer-reviewed, and many point out that such processes, while scientifically valid, may be economically impractical outside the rarefied world of fusion power.
Obviously, nuclear energy, nuclear waste is harmful. It will make all of us sick. If it gets into the wrong hands, then it's mass weapons and we all die. Those are facts. Right? Or have we been lied to for a long time about this subject? Because having reliable, efficient, renewable energy, I mean, there's no money from that, right? So if there's no money, then no one profits. Money seems to be everything. People will say, well, capitalism forces this. No. A free market doesn't do this. This is something else. And I don't know what this is, but it's not good. Those are just my personal opinions. Go ahead, leave your comments down below. And if you found any value in this today, please go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. It may not seem like much to you, but it really does do a big difference for a growing channel like this. And here at the Maine Perspective, I am trying to bring your attention to things in our state and in our world that you may not be aware of. And the more that I'm getting into Maine politics and what's going on here in Maine, the more I'm realizing it's affecting the world. And we need to start waking up to that. And we need to start speaking up and speaking out and doing something about it. Because the way life should be, we're going to lose any semblance to that. We're going to lose any touch to that. And that's a scary thought. But again, those are just my opinions. Until the next video, y'all, this has been Drew Hoagland with the Maine Perspective.
Ready, fight!